Hey guys, this episode of the Great Indian Podcast is brought to you by the Anchor app. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's completely free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so that it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. What's up, India? Namaste and welcome to another episode of the Great Indian Podcast. I'm your host, Dev. Hope you're staying at home, hope you're indoors, hope you're safe. And let's get started. So since the last few days, curfew and lockdown are two words that we are hearing a lot in news channels, newspapers and online articles. But what are the differences between these two words, curfew and lockdown? What exactly are the legal provisions that are enforced during a curfew and what are the legal provisions that are enforced during a lockdown? So this is what we'll be talking about today in this episode of the Great Indian Podcast. In the evening of 24th of March, Honorable Chief Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji declared a lockdown in India. This lockdown is a nationwide one and this is probably the first time in the history of independent India that the whole country is shut and all 1.3 billion people are indoors. And from 25th of March to 14th of April, this will go on for 3 weeks. No other country in the world has done a lockdown in such a massive scale in order to counter the coronavirus spreading. India is the first country to implement such a nationwide lockdown, and this step is very praiseworthy of the Indian government. And in my opinion, this was a necessary step in order to stop the spreading of the virus. But if you have been following the news for the past 10 days, you'll see some news like curfew imposed in Rajasthan, Telangana imposes night curfew, and Punjab and Chandigarh imposes curfew. Maharashtra imposes a curfew. So different state governments are implementing curfew in their own states and all these started in the 18th of March. Now a full lockdown has been implemented throughout India. But law and order is a state subject. So law is a responsibility of the state. So each state has its own laws and is implementing measures depending on the resources it has or depending on their needs and the number of cases of COVID-19 that are reported from that particular state. Like for example, right now, a lot of cases are coming from Maharashtra. In the beginning, Delhi had a lot of cases. So that's why curfew was imposed first in these two states. So depending on the number of cases, as they increase, a curfew is imposed henceforth. So first, let's talk about the term lockdown. First, understand that the term lockdown is not a legal term. It is not used in any part of the Constitution of India. This is just a term of common usage that we have adopted. But right now, the lockdown that is being implemented falls under the Epidemic Diseases Act of 1897. The central government had already imposed this act about 15 days ago, and this is a very stringent act. Under this act, a lot of power is given to the state governments. This act gives state governments sweeping discretionary powers to mold restrictions as per the need. So under this act, the district collector or the chief medical officer of a particular area has the authority to enforce a lockdown. Okay, so what happens in a lockdown? The first and foremost rule of a lockdown is that everybody have to stay at home. Everyone should stay indoors, only except if they are accessing essential services. Now, what exactly are these essential services? Essential services can be groceries, medicines, visiting the hospital for an emergency or something, visiting the bank for some money withdrawal. So all these essential services like hospitals, banks, ATMs, grocery stores, vegetables and milk shops will still be open. and even some services like media and newspapers are also allowed to operate. Now, what are the powers of the police in a lockdown? See, police doesn't have the power to arrest people because obviously people will go out of their homes to fulfill their essential requirements like groceries and stuff. So it's not like that whoever comes out of their house gets arrested by the police. But if the police wants, they can arrest somebody with the orders of the court, technically. Generally, police issues a warning and advises the people to not get out of their homes, and if they do, they should complete all their tasks and head home, and not to come out of their house multiple times. Now, in such a situation as now, if a person gets adversarial, the police does have the right to arrest him under section 269 and 270 of the Indian Penal Code. So if you are just normally going to the supermarket for getting groceries, the police cannot arrest you in case of a lockdown. Now, if someone were to escape from quarantine, the authorities can book him under section 271 of the IPC. And I'm actually very surprised because even now, people are escaping quarantine facilities. Yesterday only, a woman in UP escaped from a government quarantine facility. And it is very surprising that even now, still people do not understand the gravity of the situation. Now let's talk about curfew. I'm sure everybody have heard the term curfew. Normally whenever there's riots or some violent disturbances, curfew is enforced. The authority of enforcing a curfew lies on the hands of the state governments because, as I said previously, that law and order is a matter of the state governments. So a curfew is imposed using section 144 of the Criminal Procedure Code, that's CRPC, and this power lies in the hands of the district magistrate or the police commissioner wherever there's a commissionerate system. During a curfew imposed under section 144, and the main difference between a curfew and a lockdown is that all the essential services are also shut down. So all the grocery stores, milk shops, banks and everything is shut down, and only administration and police personnel are allowed on the streets. This is the main difference between a curfew and a lockdown. Now the question is that exactly what is being imposed in India right now? A curfew or a lockdown? Look, India is under a lockdown, that's for sure. But every state using their own powers have enforced curfew depending on the state. So the state governments have used a combination of the Epidemic Diseases Act and section 144 of the Criminal Procedure Code to impose restrictions. Now let me clear your doubts regarding some specific issues regarding lockdown and curfew. Let's say you have to go out for some emergency. Somebody in your house is sick and you have to take him to the hospital. So in this case, during a lockdown, you don't need a pass to go to the hospital. But in case of a curfew, you will need a special pass. You will need to inform the nearest police station or the local SDO and seek for their permission. Many state governments have also started a service in which all those people who are working for essential services, those private operators will also be provided with a special pass. Like yesterday only, Delhi government announced that they will be providing them with an e-pass. To those who work for essential services like transport and storage, as they have no government IDs, so Delhi government is providing them with IDs, that's e-passes. Now coming to essential services during a lockdown, banks, hospitals and groceries are open and available. But in case of a curfew, there is no guarantee of such essential services depending on the situation. Government can close all essential services except emergency services like hospitals. Now coming to exemptions, are there any exemptions that a particular business can operate or something like that? This is possible in case of a lockdown. Governments come up with a list of exemptions available, but in case of a curfew, such exemptions are very rare. Mostly exemptions are given to emergency services like hospitals. Right now, given the situation, the Home Ministry of India has issued a list of services and guidelines of what will be stay open and what will not be open. So I'll just read it aloud for you. So the following is a list of what will stay open during this 21-day lockdown period. Hospitals, nursing homes, police, fire stations, ATMs will continue to work. Shops dealing with food, groceries, fruits, vegetables, dairy, fish, meat, animal fodder will remain open. Banks, insurance offices, print and electronic media to remain open. E-commerce delivery of essential goods like food, pharmaceuticals and medical equipments. Petrol pumps, LPG and gas retail outlets. Capital and debt markets notified by SEBI. Cold storage and warehouses. Telecom, internet broadcast and cable services. And the following is a list of what will not be open. All tourist transport services, including air, rail, and roadways, will be suspended. All industries not involved in manufacturing or production of essential commodities. All hospitality services to be suspended except those accommodating tourists and persons stranded due to lockdown, medical, and emergency staff, or those which are being used for quarantine. All places of worship, all social, political, sports, entertainment, cultural gatherings will be barred. All educational, training and research institutions will be closed. Now talking about mass gatherings. See, when a curfew is imposed, Section 144 is in action, and Section 144 says that not more than 5 people can gather at a public place. This is the rule under Section 144. And even if one single person is outside and the district administration has declared that nobody should be outside, then in that case, even that single person can be arrested. Such is the rule of Section 144. But in case of a lockdown, nothing like this happens. You can go out for essential shopping, but even in the case of a lockdown, you cannot organize any form of public gatherings like birthday parties or any religious events, because such mass public gatherings are banned or police cracks them down. And in case of curfews, you cannot even think of doing such things. Now, speaking of violations, if somebody breaks the law during a lockdown period, then it can lead to legal actions against the violators. But mostly police requests you to go back home. Don't roam around, and if you've come to buy any essential items, then please go back as soon as possible. But whenever there's a curfew, police doesn't request like that, and strict action is taken by the police and administration. Right now, from many different corners of the country, many such visuals have arrived where police is being strict, sometimes even using a lathi on people who are found roaming outside without any reason at all. Now, it depends on your own opinion whether you find it right or wrong, but this is not the issue that we are discussing over here. So please, you just need to make sure that you are staying at home, because in order to stop the spread of the coronavirus, we have to maintain social distancing. So the question still remains unanswered that can I go out to buy groceries? And the answer would be yes, you can. Going out alone to buy essential commodities or to access essential services will not attract any penalty or punishment. But try to make sure that whenever you are going shopping, do shopping of at least 4 to 5 days at once, so that your exposure and your chances of you catching coronavirus decreases. Don't do something like once you're going out to buy milk and then once again you're going out to buy biscuits and then you're going out to buy vegetables. Don't do something like this. Make sure that whenever you are going out for shopping, do not go very close to people. Avoid crowding of people. Maintain as much distance as possible from other people. Many shops have already started implementing this by making circles at a distance of 3 feet or 1 meter and requesting their customers to stand on them. Because if you are standing near people or if you're crowding them, then you can be tried legally. Yes, you heard that right. Under Section 269, that's endangering the health of others, and under Section 270, that's negligently spreading infection. So if you are endangering the health of others by helping in spreading of the disease, then legal provisions can be charged against you. So following social distancing is not only your social and moral responsibility, but your legal responsibility as well. And with that being said, thank you so much for listening. If you wish to connect with me on social media, you can follow us on Instagram at the Great Indian Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at Great Indian Pod. You can also mail us at thegreatindianpodcast at gmail.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening. Jai Hind.